What's up, guys? We're back. Do you guys hate me right now? I gotta say, I think Scout did a pretty good job with his legendary Pokemon design. People have been asking for a taco Pokemon, and I think that Drag Taco is just, well, to borrow a phrase,
Perfect.
I understand, though, if some of you were expecting something a little bit different on April 1st. I mean, we've been teasing some pretty tantalizing tidbits about what appears to be two very real and not at all taco-related legendary Pokemon. It would be cruel to keep you guys dangling after all of that. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video... No, I'm just kidding. That's it. I swear, I'm done. Today, for real this time, we're going to take a crack at designing the actual box legendaries for our hypothetical new generation, the Mazah region. A subject matter that I think we've all been excited to tackle here at Subjectively. First, we're going to break down what exactly goes into the visual design of a legendary Pokemon, how Gamefreak has established and broken design conventions in their official releases, and how I've taken what I love about my favorite legendary Pokemon and reappropriated those aspects into my own designs. Then, we're going to talk lore. A lot of people have their own theories about what kind of story will center around the two box legendaries, and I hope that what I've created excites you as much as it does surprise you. With those two steps completed, we're going to look at the first few drafts of the box legendaries. Yes, you heard me right. The designs I'm showing you today may not be final. I want these legendaries to look as good as they can, and since I'm known for redrawing my Pokemon designs over and over again, I'd like to cut out a few steps and get these guys right on the first pass, rather than waiting 6 months and redesigning them again. With all the context I'll provide for you guys, I hope that you can give me some really constructive criticism on these designs so that I can go back in and make some effective changes that bring these designs to the true legendary standard. That said, if a majority of you like them the way they are now, I'll leave them be. I am pretty happy with how they look so far. But first, a lesson in legendaries. Legendary Pokemon make up less than 10% of the entirety of the Pokedex, but they're some of the most well-known and widely loved designs in the games. Taking on the roles of deific entities, spirits, or even abominations born of mankind's hubris, legendaries are some of the strongest Pokemon in any game. Consequently, they are favorites of both competitive players and young children who don't feel like training the rest of their party for the Elite Four, and instead just use their overleveled and overpowered Kyogre to obliterate Sydney. Starting in the second generation of Pokemon, versions Gold and Silver, certain legendary Pokemon also received the title of Box Legendary, taking center stage as the mascot of their respective version and immediately setting an endgame goal for the player of catching this rare and powerful prize. These mascots of each generation are seen more than almost any other Pokemon, used in marketing, merchandise, promotional material, and animated trailers, so it's pretty important that they look unique, compelling, and memorable. My favorite designs in this category are Palkia, Kyogre, Xerneas, and Kyurem. When I first sat down to start designing my own legendaries, I kept these 4 Pokemon in mind to try to emulate what about them I loved so much. Kyogre is mostly nostalgia, I'll be honest. The sight of it reminds me of my Christmas wishlist of 2003, imploring both my mother and Santa Claus to bring me a blue Game Boy Advance SP and Pokemon Sapphire version. As an adult, though, I still think Kyogre is a fantastic design. Something about how its visuals are both familiar and yet so alien. You could argue that it's an orca looking at its face and the markings around its eyes, but then you see its almost mechanical-looking fins spread out like airplane wings and tipped with something like claws. The arcane markings that line its body give it that deific, almighty presence that makes it feel like a legendary. And in the menu screen of the game... sorry, it's just too much nostalgia. I feel like I'm under my blankets hiding from my mom at 10:43 p.m. Xerneas and Kyurem both showcase another aspect of legendary Pokemon that I love, freedom of design. With every new generation, there's a crowd of people saying that the new Mons don't look like real Pokemon, which isn't surprising considering that just a few seconds before you saw them, they weren't real Pokemon. Not to you, anyway. But I personally love when a design breaks every rule about how a legendary Pokemon or a Pokemon in general should look. Redefining design conventions helps make a Pokemon feel more otherworldly, and sets a new standard for how crazy the next generation can get. I love how slender and delicate Xerneas looks without feeling vulnerable or weak. Its intricate interlacing antlers must have taken weeks to design, and the whole character showcases the new 3D rendering technology beautifully. Kyurem, particularly in its black and white forms, has always resonated with me. When it was first released, people bashed it relentlessly, saying it was over-designed. I kinda love how crazy they look. Asymmetry, inorganic material over living flesh, animated components that can really only be appreciated with the cutting-edge sprites introduced in Gen 5 games. Black Kyurem checks so many boxes for me, and I want to have some of the same controversial impact with my legendary designs. Love them or hate them. Finally, Palkia. Probably my all-time favorite legendary Pokemon. What is it? Is it a dinosaur? Is it a dragon? Is it a spaceship or a living statue? Is it based on some obscure Japanese myth, or is it something entirely new? Well, it's all of these things, and none of them. It's something entirely its own, and I love that. As a character designer, I see the value in taking inspiration from existing source material, but I also love being able to create something altogether unheard of in the world of fantasy. What I love most about Palkia is not really its design, but how it came to be. The story about how the developers of Diamond and Pearl sat their team under their desks, turned out the lights, and told them the tales of Sinnoh's ancient lore is just so magical to me. It's what I always assumed working for a company like Pokemon would be like, but I never thought it could be. I'd like to do something similar right now. Settle in and put yourself in the open, arid deserts of the Mazah region. We're sitting down in the cool sand as the sun drops below the mountains in the distance. Stars begin to dot the purple sky, and a torch is lit before a massive stone jutting out of the earth. Upon the stone are the ancient paintings of a civilization long past, remnants of a story that lives on in the hearts of the Mazah people. In ancient times, the Mazah region was divided into two distinct societal groups, the Imata tribe and the Katalu Empire. The Imata were a peaceful people, living off the land and following the Pokemon that shared their desert home. The Katalu ruled over the vast jungles and established a sprawling empire with cities and structures that towered over the land. Each civilization followed the teachings of two separate deities. The Katalu were followers of Hilarmos, the first hunter. The Imata worshipped Maripom, the first hunted. The story goes that, when the Mazah region was inhabited by only Pokemon, Hilarmos and Maripom set the ecosystem in balance. Hilarmos as the first predator, and Maripom as the first prey. When humans began to inhabit the land, some favored the ways of the predator, stagnant, unchanging, and always hungry for more, while other humans sought out the life of prey, ever moving in fear of being caught, looking forward to a better future. After some time, the Katalu began to exhaust their resources. Depleting their jungle home of food, they sought to conquer what little the Imata had. They unleashed Hilarmos, using special jewelry to control it. The Pokemon wreaked havoc over the land, laying waste to both the jungle and the desert, consuming everything in its path. In a desperate attempt to save their people, the Imata released their guardian, Maripom. Enticed by this ultimate prize, Hilarmos pursued its ancient rival. The ensuing chase caused more destruction than either civilization anticipated, and they were forced to work together to seal away both Pokemon in a sacred tomb. As the years went by, the remnants of the Katalu and Imata civilizations slowly unified. The land was no longer divided, and adopted a new name, the Mazah region. While the empire of the Katalu and the tribes of the Imata have faded into history, their mentalities persist in their descendants. Some believe the only way to succeed is to remain hungry and ruthless. Change brings about destruction, and tradition must reign supreme. Others live more progressive lives, seeking to break out of the routines of old and blaze a new trail for the Mazah region. Now that you guys have a little taste of the lore, you're ready to hear about my concept for the legendaries. We haven't talked about it a lot, but the contrasting themes of the Mazah region are modernism versus tradition. It seemed appropriate for a region based off of Mexico, Central America, and South America. It took me a while to figure out how I could express these themes through physical designs, and like I said earlier, I didn't want to just copy and paste existing mythology into a Pokemon setting. I eventually concocted the story about a giant lizard chasing a giant bug, where the lizard represented tradition and the bug was a symbol of modernism. The lizard wanted things to stay the same, because it enjoyed being on the top of the food chain. The bug hoped to change the way things had always been. As a victim of the system, but was powerless to do so. I combined this little fable with some unique Pokemon typing, like Poison and Ice, and I also liked the idea of a box legendary that was a bug type, seeing as we don't have any bug type legendaries as it stands now. The final concept in my head was Ice Lizard versus Bug Warrior, and from there, I started thinking about design. We'll look at Hilarmos first, the ice and poison type reptilian design representing both predators and traditionalism. The predator part was easy to convey with visual design. Things like sharp teeth, focused eyes, and large claws immediately read as the toolkit of a natural-born hunter. Because of the Mesoamerican visual motifs consistent throughout the whole region, I wanted to bring in some subtle elements that tied the design back to the inspiration, without copying any one culture or character too specifically. To convey the traditionalism side would prove tricky. What about a Pokemon design would make it look traditional? It couldn't just be that it looked ancient. Both designs were supposed to be from thousands of years ago, so that wouldn't work. Instead, I thought about traditionalism in the context of legendary Pokemon designs. I decided that I wanted this Pokemon in particular to borrow from older designs that I personally like. Palkia, Kyurem, and Kyogre all gave me inspiration for Hilarmos, and I intentionally followed a lot of older conventions of legendary designs to make it feel more like a Gen 4 or 5 Pokemon. My first design felt a little too dramatic, not enough like an older Pokemon design. I did like the elongated and serpentine body as well as the massive forearms. In my second design, I made it more bipedal. I changed the shapes on its back to make them a little bit more bulky, but I think I like them better in the first design? I'm not sure. One feature I kept are the earrings, which I imagine would be a key item the player would use to interact with Hilarmos in a similar way to the red and blue orbs. Hilarmos, the first hunter Pokemon. According to an ancient legend, Hilarmos set the ecological system of the Mazah region in motion by establishing itself as the first predator. It produces a lethal neurotoxin that, when inhaled, slowly shuts down body functions until the victim becomes stiff and lifeless. To protect both the people and the Pokemon of the Mazah region, Hilarmos was locked away in a great temple many thousands of years ago. Once again, this is not a final design. I like it, but I feel like there are a few things about it that I want to change. Let me know if you agree with my self-critiques. It might look too much like Palkia. The colors are a bit too similar to Suicune. The adornment on its back is kind of uninteresting, and there might need to be another color in its palette somewhere. And of course, let me know if there are any other critiques you guys have. Like I said, I want to make these designs as good as they can be, and I'll revise them again based on what you have to say. Next up, we'll take a look at Maripom, the second box legendary. Because Maripom would be the prey of Hilarmos, I wanted it to look more vulnerable. While Hilarmos needed to look built for destruction, Maripom specialized in the art of the escape. I used very thin, delicate shapes for the body. This would contrast with the bold and comparatively large wings that would take up a lot of the visual real estate in this design. In my first sketch, I played around with the designs that would be on the wings, but I didn't give it a ton of thought. I would revisit this, however. Like I said, the wings take up a lot of space in this design, so it's important that they don't look boring or empty. In my second design, I changed up the pose. Because Maripom would also be a symbol of modernism, I wanted it to look hopeful, like it was looking up towards the sky. This pose made it tricky to balance the size of the wings against the intricacy of the body, without making the whole thing feel too cluttered. There really aren't any box legendaries that are this slender and delicate, so it was hard to scale proportions in a way that still resembles a Pokemon. However, seeing as Maripom was a symbol of modernism and change, and considering that I wanted to make Hilarmos look more like an older Pokemon design, it made sense that Maripom would look a little bit more unusual. That said, my second draft didn't look related enough to Hilarmos, so I went back in for a third design. I kept most of the features the same, the biggest change was to the pose. I kind of missed the more characterizing second pose, but this one did make it a lot easier to understand the Pokemon's anatomy. I also changed the eyes to match Hilarmos, but this might have made the whole thing look a bit too much like Deoxys. I mean, I love Deoxys, but I don't want people making that comparison, so that might have to change. I also changed up the patterns on the wings, but I don't think I love those changes either. It ended up looking too much like stained glass, which is cool, but it doesn't really fit with the Mesoamerican imagery that I wanted to evoke in these designs. Maripom, the first hunted Pokemon. Some in the Mazah region accredit the balanced ecosystem of the land to a legendary Pokemon called Maripom. Stories about Maripom claim that it sacrificed itself to another great Pokemon as the first ever prey, hunted day and night so the predator might never find weaker Pokemon or humans. One day, Maripom was caught by the hunter, and the humans of the Mazah region had to take matters into their own hands. So yeah, Maripom definitely needs another pass, but here's what I like about it. The slender and delicate body, the shape of the arms and legs, the ratio of wing size to body size, and the colors. Here's what I'd like to change though. The eyes. I might change them on Hilarmos to match too. The shape of its head, and I might change that instead of the eyes? I like both, but together it looks too much like Deoxys, specifically the speed form. And the patterns on its wings. I might go back and do something more like in the first draft. Let me know what you guys think about both of the designs. What do you like about them and what should change? I'm happy with the story, so be sure to base your critiques around the role each character plays in the lore. Thank you for your patience, with the whole April Fool's thing. I probably won't be able to get away with that again. You guys are awesome. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you all in the next one. League fans, Skarner is up next.